Today's episode of The Overwhelmed Brain is brought to you by Casper. Get $50 towards select mattresses when you visit casper.com/brain and use the promo code BRAIN during checkout. Terms and conditions apply. That's $50.
Are you annoyed by affirmations? Are you tired of that same old, rehashed personal growth advice that all seems to boil down to think positively and all your problems will go away? If affirmations feel like lies and positive thinking feels like denial, then I want you to get ready. The Overwhelmed Brain is here to help you create the life you want now.
Welcome to The Overwhelmed Brain. I am Paul Coliani, a personal empowerment coach, and this is the show where I read your questions and help you tackle life's toughest challenges. I want to help you increase your emotional intelligence, strengthen your self-worth and self-esteem, and empower you so that you can make decisions that are right for you. Everything I talk about on this show is my personal opinion and is meant for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult a medical or psychological professional before making any changes that could affect your physical or mental health. All right, I'm going to start off the show with a comment on a couple things, actually. The first comment is a couple websites that mention the show. I'd like to thank the Chopra Center. If you go to thechopra.com, I was very happy to find out that they recommended my podcast as one of the personal growth podcasts to listen to, and an Indian site called thehansindia.com. And I think that's an English paper in India or something, but I'm very grateful, very honored. Thank you so much for those mentions. And they mentioned my show as one of the inspirational personal growth podcasts you can listen to. And it's funny because I read these. Well, first of all, I'm grateful, I'm honored. But I'm laughing because I think it's funny sometimes when someone describes my show. When I describe my show, I call it a personal growth show. I used to say the personal growth show for critical thinkers. And it's also a personal empowerment show. It's a show about emotional intelligence and strengthening your self-worth and self-esteem, on and on and on. And then when somebody else describes my show, every now and then they'll use the words no nonsense. And I laugh about that because I never consider myself no nonsense. That sounds like someone who just gets straight to the point and there's no fluff. And, I don't really think there's fluff in this show except for this part that I'm talking about right now. But the idea that this is a no nonsense show, it just strikes me because you never know how people perceive you. You don't know how people perceive what you're doing in the world. And, there's one of those questions that you're told to ask people, like 5 of your friends, like, how do you see me? Describe the 5 characteristics that you like about me, the 5 traits that you like about me. And they'll come up with all these responses, and you're sitting there going, what? That's not me. What? And so that's just another indication that we are in our own world, that we are living our life from inside maybe the fish tank. That's a good comparison, because a fish only knows his or her own world inside the water, inside a fish tank, when there's a giant world out there that they'll never know. The fish will never know the world outside unless it goes, unless it's transferred to another place. But it's like we walk around in these fish tanks, and this is my world, and everything that comes to me comes to this tank, and everything I perceive is through the water, through this tank. And I look at my show as something that you can listen to and learn something about yourself. Other people may look at this show, and I've actually read this before, they say the no-nonsense thing, and they also say he's a bit edgy or in your face. I think I read that before. And I read these things and I think to myself, this isn't how I am. If you met me in person, I'm not an in your face guy. I'm mostly quiet. My girlfriend disagrees, but I feel like I know I'm an introvert, but I feel like I listen a lot. I listen, and then I'll speak if I think it's important, but I mostly listen. I like to listen. And every now and then I'll get animated and really get into something. But it's funny how I see myself. Other people don't see me that way. Just like people don't see you the way you see you. And this is good to know. This is good to know as you go through life, because someone's perception of you will almost always be different than your own perception of yourself. And that's helpful. I mean, that's helpful to know that when you define yourself and you have commentary about yourself and you judge yourself and you look in the mirror and you say, I'm not that pretty, I'm not that handsome, or you think I'm absolutely handsome and I'm absolutely gorgeous, whatever you think, when you're being reflective, it's a mirror as a physical example of that, but mentally or emotionally reflective, and you think, oh, I'm just not that good, that inner critic, that inner dialogue, I'm just not a great person, I'm just, or, we say, that's really a bad example. The better example is, I'm so stupid. These are the things we say to ourselves, right? I'm so stupid, that was dumb, why do I do that to myself? And then we have obsessive thoughts like, I can't ever finish things, and I can't ever start things, and I can't ever keep a relationship, and I can't ever keep a job. And these tapes play over and over again and cause us to believe that's who we are. I think it's very important to understand that who we believe we are is usually not what the world believes we are. Because the world sees us, they see us behave in certain ways, they see us show up in the world, show up at our jobs, show up in our relationships, and they have an opinion. It's true. I mean, I know that social anxiety is all about feeling judged. I mean, there's more to it, but that's one of the big ones. I don't want to be judged. I don't want people to look at me and think something of me. But people judge us all the time. But we judge them too. We look at someone and we think about something, about, their clothes, their look, their hairstyle, whatever. We have all these commentaries going on in our head, and it's just part of the way the world works. Yet we also go around thinking, I don't want to be judged. So I talk about that in another episode, but the whole point is we have a perception about other people that they don't have about themselves. When we look at someone and we think, wow, that guy or girl is gorgeous, they may be going home looking in the mirror saying, God, I'm so ugly. Why can't I get anyone? And then they bring this I'm so ugly into the world. I'm so ugly, I better wear something that downplays my exposure to the world. I better wear a lot of thick clothes. I better make my hair a mess so nobody looks at me because I'm just so ugly I don't think that I could hold a relationship. I mean, this is what our thoughts do to us. They cause us to do things that downplay us a lot of the times. I mean, sometimes we have positive thoughts and they upplay us, if that's a word. But what happens when we have negative thoughts that downplay us? We show up in the world playing a smaller game. We show up not putting in as much risk, not making the stakes so high because we believe something smaller about ourselves. So we show up thinking that we're not attractive, thinking that we're not valuable, thinking that we're not worthy. And other people in the world see us differently. Some people see us a lot better than we think we are, and some people see us through their own unhealed filters. Now, I want to make a point of that because when you feel judged by someone because they say something bad about you, or they give you that glare, the one that you don't like, and you feel judged, first of all, we're, assuming they're judging us if they're not telling us. But second of all, when somebody judges us and puts us down, they're using their own unhealed filters. Because a healed, mentally healthy person is not going to put us down. Because what's the gain? The gain for them to put us down is what? I mean, for me, it used to make me feel better. That's not a good thing. I mean, that's just something that I used to do. It would make me feel better putting someone else down. I'm going to put that person down. I mean, I didn't say this to myself, but this is the hindsight logic I can look at. I'm going to put that person down so I can feel better about myself. Hey, long hair. Hey, four eyes. Hey, fatty. I mean, all these things that I don't like saying now, but, I may have said when I was young. Hey, tall, geeky circus freak. All these things that we say to people, maybe when we were younger. Hopefully we don't say that now, but we have opinions in our head, don't we? We have thoughts in our head like, why doesn't that person just stop doing that? Why doesn't that person exercise more? Why doesn't that person eat right? Why doesn't that person drive a better car? All these thoughts that come to our head that come from an unhealed place in us. Because if we were healed, our natural way of being is to be social. Our natural way of being is to connect. It actually hurts us as a species to put people down. Now, there are people out there saying, yeah, but you have to discern and you have to procreate and keep the species going and the strongest will survive and so on and so forth. So there has to be discernment and there has to be judgment. And in nature, that may be the case. You might have a tribe of chimpanzees or something that knock down who appears to be the leader, so there's a new leader. I don't know the science behind this, but the idea that there are other alphas that want that lead position, that's going to happen. I don't disagree with that. But I think in general that we are programmed, we are hardwired to want to get along with everyone and to not put people down, because if we put them down, then it creates disharmony in our tribes, in our cultures. And when there's disharmony, there's less working together, there's less teamwork to get things done that require everyone on the team to get things done. And there's also less happiness. I don't think we're supposed to separate and be unhappy and push people out of the tribe unless they're really causing trouble, but push them out because we don't like the way they look, the way they sound, the way they walk, the way they talk, whatever. I think when we are judgmental toward people and we want to put them down or we want to give them that glare, that it does come from that unhealed place. Because if we were healed, if we were emotionally healthy, we would want other people to be happy. If they're happy, the team grows together and we accomplish more. And if we accomplish more, then we prosper and we thrive. It only makes sense to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but it makes sense to me that this would be how we're hardwired. And if that's the case, then people who judge others negatively, they make them feel bad, are unhealed. I believe that. I believe that they have something to heal in them. And maybe that's the wrong word, but just for lack of a better term right now, unhealed, I can relate to that because as an unhealed person for most of my life, that's what I did. I was very judgmental. I was looking at people, judging them left and right. And I was doing that because I had high standards. I was a perfectionist. And when you judge because you have your own high standards and you have the bar set so high with criteria that is almost impossible to meet, you're going to stay in that judgmental space unless somebody does exactly everything you want them to do. And that usually doesn't happen. And that's called control and dominance and being the alpha and wanting everyone to submit to you. That doesn't feel very good. That's more of an aggressive stance that I don't want to take. I don't want to control my girlfriend if she does something that I don't want her to do. I would rather have her come up with her own conclusion on what's best for her, for the relationship, for me. And if her own conclusion is something that is against my values or my boundaries, then I need to come to terms with that in me. I need to come to terms with that in a way that I still support her path, even if it disagrees with my path, even if it alters our course together. I can say to her, I don't agree with what you're doing, and it's affecting me, and it's affecting this relationship. It's against my values, and I don't know if I can stay with you if you stay this way. Now, this hasn't happened, but this can happen. And I'm willing to look at scenarios that unfold in our relationship and ask myself questions when it happens. Is this something that I can find acceptable? What's great about that, though, there are things over the years that the woman in my life would, start to do. Like one woman started listening to country music and I didn't like it. But there was a point where you get to where you're either going to accept the fact that he or she likes country music and you don't, or you like country music and they don't, or whatever example you want to use, and either accept that that's who they are and have it become part of your relationship not something you oppose, or you can continue to oppose it and continue to feel the resistance, continue to have these feelings that you don't like because they do something you disagree with, or you can come to an acceptance that this is how they are and you support their path, you support their happiness. And when you do that, when they sense that, you get along and you feel good and everything is copacetic. So sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you can support someone's path and sometimes you can't. But my point is, the judgments that we have against others, when they come from this unhealed place, this is where we turn that judgment around, point it at us, and ask ourselves, what can I do to make changes so that I'm not judging them? What do I need to heal that causes me to judge them? And my favorite question is, why is who they are in their life so vital to me that I feel like I need to criticize it and want them to change? I think that's a good question. Why is what that person does in their life or how they show up in their life so critical to me? Why is it necessary for me to say anything about what anyone else does? Well, I want them to change. Well, why do you want them to change? Well, because if they change, then they'll fit my model of someone that I want in my life. Okay, what if they don't change? Well, if they don't change, I'll be upset with them. And you're going to take your upset out on them instead of looking at yourself and wondering why you're getting upset in the first place because someone won't submit to your control. I'm pushing buttons here. I don't mean to push buttons, but I just want to say if you're in that judgmental space, then be aware that judgment comes from that unhealed place in you and that it's something that you need to work on in yourself. The other person may be doing something that you don't appreciate, that you don't agree with, that you don't like, that's against your values or boundaries. And it's great to have a conversation about it. Hey, what you're doing is really affecting me. I think it's disrespectful. I think this, I think that. And if they say, well, this is what I want to do. This is something I enjoy doing. I'm sorry that it affects you. Instead of you laying down the hammer and say, well, you can't do that. You're going to find more healing, more growth if you turn it around on yourself and ask, what can I do so that I can become the person that has no problem with their behavior? I'm not saying you can do it. I'm not saying that you'll get to a point where you have no problem with their behavior. The point is to turn it around on yourself and make sure that you've exhausted all efforts to accept their behavior, because you may not be able to accept their behavior. They may be doing something atrocious or heinous and you don't want it in your life, and you decide that you need to get out of whatever situation you're in, a work situation, a relationship, whatever it is. When you look at someone and you don't agree with their behavior, can you go back inward and ask yourself, what can I do to be more accepting, less controlling, less judgmental? What do I need to do to change that in me? Because I'm here to say, when you spend your time and energy judging other people, that's time and energy you take away from yourself to improve yourself, to work on yourself, to figure out what you need to do to become more of a loving, accepting, supportive, nurturing person. Not that you aren't, but the negative judgments that come up can take away from that. I don't want that to take away from us. Like these negative judgments I've had in my life, they took away from my loving, supportive, nurturing self. Because I was all that. I was loving, supporting, and nurturing and caring, wanting my partner in my life and my coworkers and my friends and my family, wanting them to be happy. And I also destroyed many relationships by being judgmental toward them and trying to control them so that they would fit my mold of what perfection is, or my standards that I believed they should follow because they would be healthier, they would be happier. I believe I had all the answers on how someone else could be happier and healthier and so on and so forth. And now I feel funny saying that because here I am telling you this, how to be happier and healthier. But I hope you don't think this is me judging you. It's not that at all. I'm just giving you a new perspective, because that's what I'm talking about in this first segment is perspective. What is your perspective of yourself? Because we judge ourselves a lot. What is your perspective of other people? And what is their perspective of you? And why does that matter? Who cares? It matters because the inner dialogue that we have about ourselves, the inner judgments that we have about ourselves, is usually, when it's bad, it's usually wrong. And sometimes it's right, but often it's wrong. Like thinking that, I hear myself on tape and my voice sounds so awful. Yet everyone around us said, your voice doesn't sound awful. Your voice sounds fine. They've heard us, for many years, and they think, yeah, you don't sound bad at all. Yet when we hear ourselves on tape, we think, I just sound so terrible. We're so critical of ourselves, yet this isn't really how the world sees us. So I want you to keep this in mind about how critical you are to yourself and how doing that diminishes you in a way, because who do you bring out into the world? Imagine if you thought you had a great voice and you walked out into a room and you're able to use this voice with no problem. I'm emphasizing and exaggerating, but I want you to get this feeling. And if you think you have a great voice, this isn't for you. This is for the people that hear themselves and they think, I don't like the way I sound. Yet everyone else, they don't care. They're fine with it. They probably have no issue with your voice at all. They even love it. Yet imagine if you were the only one with that opinion, and that was the only opinion that you thought mattered. That's challenging. If you believe yourself and what you're saying about yourself is negative, that's a huge challenge, because what do you do about that? I'm here to say that sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're wrong about yourself. So try not to walk around thinking that everything that you think about yourself is true, because it just isn't. And the people around you that give you compliments and you just don't believe it because you believe something else that you said about yourself, instead, I want you to let a little bit of their compliment seep in and start to believe that, hey, what they say might be true. I brought all this stuff up because in our next segment, I read an email from someone who is still feeling guilty about being a bully in school. And I think this is great because this person has a lot of negative feelings about themselves. And I'm not sure if it's a guy or a girl. I think it's a guy. And he really wants to get over the guilt. He really wants to get past how he feels that he may still be bullying people in certain ways. And it's all about the perception he has of himself and maybe how he perceives other people to see him as the bully. I'm not sure. We're going to read the email and see where we go with it right after this. Be right back. I wanted to get you on this, what do they call this? Sponsored.
You're recording this.
Yeah. But I want to talk to you about the Casper mattress because you've been sleeping on it as long as I have.
True.
And I like to think of a mattress by not thinking of a mattress. Like when we had your old mattress, I moved in. We had your old mattress.
Yeah, and we thought about it all the time as the sinkhole developed in the middle.
I thought about that all. How am I going to sleep tonight? Where am I going to move? We thought about where the hole was.
Okay, well, I didn't think about those things.
Well, I did.
I would think about it when I kept falling to the center towards wherever you were laying.
Yes.
That stunk.
You would sink toward me.
And I paid a huge amount of money for that thing, and it shouldn't have degraded as fast as it did.
Well, when I moved in, I thought, okay, this is great. She's got like a very high quality mattress, and she's really proud of it. She talks about it all the time, and I'm going to try it out. And I think the first few months, it was
even
nice.
A year, maybe. It was probably okay, but it clearly wasn't designed for somebody that weighs, a large size male, like a couple 100 pounds.
Well, eventually you started sinking into me, and I pretty much complained about the mattress all the time. Now, the reason I bring this up is because when we got our Casper mattress, I remember that first night laying down and for the very first time not thinking about what I'm laying on. What experience did you have?
It was firm at first, which took me a moment to get used to, but it wasn't much more than a moment. So,
well,
I haven't had any problem at all. I love that, and I don't even wake up if you get up in the middle of the night sometimes, which is really nice. And I don't think that much about sleep. I'm only thinking about it when I can't sleep and I'm frustrated because things aren't going the way I want, and I keep getting sucked into a hole, or,
When we got the box, it was like 4 feet high. I don't know. Have you ever seen this like unfolding
Yes.
that it does? I've never seen that before.
I saw it on YouTube.
Oh, you watched it before we
Yeah.
got it.
They did I watched somebody do an unbox. It was kind of fun. They just bloop, 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 woo.
Well, we put it on our box springs and it unfolded and it was king size. And then that first night I laid down, I felt like it was amazing. It was just like, this is so different than anything I'm used to. And it felt great. So I wanted to get your perspective after 6 months now? Maybe 8 months we've been on this?
I don't know, quite a while.
So we've been on this Casper mattress for quite a while. And like you said, you don't really think about it.
At all.
At all. So that's where I am too. And I surprised you with this recording. This wasn't like set up to find out exactly how you felt about it. It being 6 months now, do you feel like this was a good decision on our part to get this mattress?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It is, because I really love the concept of my old one, which was also, foam based. But then when I saw it degrade and just wasn't really sure, I just wasn't sure what was the next step. So, I think this has been a great choice. Yeah. I mean, I don't think about it at all. I go to sleep. I'm comfortable. I can say I think I got hotter with the old one, mostly because it would sink in too much, especially, I don't remember when I first got it, but it would sink in too much, and then you get hot because you're kind of in this hole and you can't breathe. So I think the fact that this one is firm without being uncomfortable actually does help with like air circulation, whatever air temperature you have in the room. You know
I
what I
haven't
mean?
noticed this thing sinking at all. So
No, but I mean, like, didn't you used to get hot before on the one that would
Oh
sink
my
way in?
God,
It's like an
yes.
oven.
yes.
And this one, I don't think that that's a problem because it's firm enough that somehow whatever they've done when you lay down, that doesn't happen. And I think that the airflow around you is good based on whatever temperature you have set in the room. So I think it's a good reflective temperature because you don't sink into a hole and get sucked into lack of circulation.
Well, thanks a lot, Asha. In case I didn't introduce you, you are my girlfriend. Yes,
Ooh.
we share this mattress. Thank you so much for joining me and recording this with me. I appreciate your time. So I wanted to have Asha here to give her unbiased opinion of the mattress. I didn't want to filter it. I didn't want to censor what she was going to say. I didn't even prepare her for this recording because I wanted to find out if she really, dug this mattress like I do. And she does. So I wanted to share this with you because Casper is one of those companies that are really making an impact with not only mattress design, but also how they deliver the mattress and make sure that you're satisfied. They offer a 100-night risk-free sleep-on-it trial. So if you're in the U.S. or Canada, they're going to send you the mattress for free, and you get to try it for 100 nights, and if you're not satisfied for any reason, they'll pick it up for free as well. They're a very affordable mattress because they cut out the middleman and they sell directly to you. And I don't want to forget to mention the quality. They combine multiple supportive memory foams for a quality sleep surface with just the right amounts of both sink and bounce. And of course, you heard Asha say it didn't get cool, it didn't get hot, it just followed the room temperature, which that's our personal experience with it. So I know you're going to dig this mattress. And if you visit casper.com/brain and use the promo code BRAIN during checkout, you'll get $50 towards select mattresses. I'm telling you, these products are designed to mimic human curves, providing supportive comfort for all kinds of bodies. Go ahead and visit casper.com/brain. Use the promo code BRAIN during checkout. Get $50 towards select mattresses. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back. I'm going to read this email from someone I'm going to call him Clifford. All right. He says, hello. I hope you're having a great day. I love the show, and it's truly helping me grow as a person. Thank you, Clifford. I am writing because when I was in school and a little bit of university, I was a bully. Not the standard beat you up and steal your money kind of bully, more like the emotionally manipulative type. And I'm plagued with guilt because of it. In school, I used to leave people out, ignore them, laugh at them, act cold, and make them feel uncomfortable and less than. And now I feel so bad about it. In recent months, I have tried to track down anyone I was a jerk to. Take out that word for the family show. and sincerely apologize. However, what is eating me alive is I truly feel like I'm a bad person because I still see those same patterns of behavior, though to a much lesser extent in myself now. When people upset me, I become cold, distant, uncommunicative, and try to push them away, even for the slightest thing. I've tried to stop, and it's slowly improving, but I can't help but be frustrated that I'm like this. I also have a tendency to be judgmental and cynical about things. I would consider myself a pretty quietly angry all the time kind of person. I would really love some insight on how I can let this guilt go because I have taken steps to make amends and change. But I probably feel worse now than before my past actions. Also, to give you a bit of context, growing up my dad was very actively and passively aggressive before he abandoned the family. My mom is very passive-aggressive and judgmental too, and also uses the silent treatment a lot. She makes snide comments and quietly, constantly puts me down. She also makes everything about her and how it is affecting her. Generally, my family are negative, unsupportive people. I recognize this as probably a large part of the reason my personality is the way it is. However, I'd love to break the chain and be a kinder, happier, more giving and forgiving person. Thank you so much for all you do. I wish you every success in life. You have a good soul. Okay, thank you, Clifford. Thank you so much for those words. And thank you for sharing this. And certainly, you're right on. I mean, our upbringing makes us who we are. It's not the only thing that makes us who we are. It's a big part of it, though, because, we're born without a lot of skills, and we have to develop these skills. And who do we have to learn from? Basically our parents or our caretakers, whoever brought us up. And if our parents or caretakers have their own problems, guess what? We get to learn their problems and how to show up in the world with their issues. Now, we transform them into our own issues, our own dysfunctions, because we develop other relationships, we have other influences, and we go through life bringing a combination of their dysfunction, their perceptions of the world, their limiting beliefs, what limits them, and you develop your own limiting beliefs and your own perceptions and your own beliefs about the world, and suddenly you are in relationships that keep failing or you keep destroying in one way, shape, or form. I've simplified it, but I think you can relate because I went through the same thing, and a lot of listeners of this show, probably most, have gone through some sort of upbringing that has caused them to believe certain things that don't necessarily serve them. So anyway, what can we do about this? The first thing I want you to do is listen to every episode I've made on guilt. Guilt, as debilitating as it can be, there's a way out. Because I'm a full believer that whenever you feel guilty about something, that you need to go above and beyond to absolve yourself. That's not the word, but resolve the guilt. That's all I'll say. Resolve the guilt inside of you. Because guilt is about self-forgiveness first and foremost. So I love that you've gone above and beyond already and tried to seek these people that maybe you mistreated or you felt that you mistreated and apologize to them. I mean, who does that? There's very few people that do that. And if you've done that, whoever's listening, I applaud you because that is something that really takes a lot of emotional strength to call someone or reach out to them through email or Facebook and say, the way I treated you, I feel so bad about it and I just want to apologize. And I bet a lot of these people that you reached out to, Cliff, they were receptive to it. And I'm wondering if some of them said, I didn't have the same experience that you had. I'm not sure what you mean, but hey, thanks for apologizing. I mean, I might be wrong about that. I don't know how mean or bullying you were, but from what you're feeling, it sounds like it was, a lot worse than I can probably imagine. But like I said, I applaud you for being able to do that. So that is a step that I myself have not taken fully. There are people in my life that I have mistreated. I actually have looked for a few of them, but I can't reach them. Some of them aren't even on the internet. And so it's difficult to find these people. So I come on the show and I say, hey, if I ever made you feel bad, contact me. Go to my website, theoverwhelmedbrain.com, and reach out to me and tell me, I'm one of those people. so I can apologize, so I can at least tell you that I'm not that same person, and whatever I did, I am so sorry. I mean, it feels good to express yourself to someone, even if they're not exactly receptive, or even if they don't accept your apology. What I like to do is not reach out to people to have your forgiveness accepted. I like to reach out to people to tell them that I am sorry, that I apologize, and not expect them to accept that. If they say, okay, thanks for doing that, and that's it, then I believe I've done my part. That doesn't mean that the problem's fixed, like they're still not angry. But now they have an opportunity. After you have apologized, they have an opportunity to take that apology and transform it into something healing for them. I don't know if the people you reached out to were waiting for you to apologize, or if they just forgot all about it, but if they were, then that's an opportunity for them to heal. Now, if they don't want to heal, and they're still angry with you, or they're still upset about it, that's on them. I hate to say this, because if you were the mean one, you were the bully, and they were the victim, then, they deserve to be angry about it. There's no doubt about it. But if you've taken steps in yourself, you've learned something about yourself, and you can reach out to these people and say, hey, look, this is what I did. I admit it, and I'm so sorry. I know it's probably not enough, but I just wanted to tell you this isn't who I am anymore. I've learned a lot. I feel like crap that I did this to you, and I'm just sorry. I would even go as far as to say, I don't expect you to accept my apology. I just wanted to say that to you. And I would add, I wanted to say that you didn't deserve that. And I think that's an important little addendum. You didn't deserve that. Because some of us, as you may be feeling, go around feeling a lack of worth, a lack of self-esteem, a lack of feeling lovable. And if we have that feeling inside of us and someone puts us down, someone bullies us, guess what that does to us? It takes us down another notch. So some of these people, yes, they may need that apology, but I would also add, you did not deserve that. I think that's a great thing to add when you're apologizing to someone. And of course, there are the people that you can't reach. There are the people that maybe you lost touch with. I don't know if you've been able to reach everyone. Did you say that? I don't remember. But if you haven't been able to reach everyone, this is where the guilt episodes come into play, because there are ways to help you through the guilt and get you beyond it. Doesn't mean the bad feelings go away. Doesn't mean you stop feeling regret. I mean, you might, but I need you to get past the guilt. I'm giving you permission to get past this guilt, because I look at absolving guilt as involving something greater than the apology. It's the self-forgiveness first and foremost, like I said. I know you asked about more than just the guilt, but I want to kind of wrap the guilt part up with some questions for you. The first question I have is, why do you feel guilty? I know it's an obvious question, but I want you to answer that. Why do you feel guilty? And you might say something, because I know I made people feel bad. And then I'm going to ask you the second question, and pause any time and think about these things after I ask the question. Why does that make you feel guilty? When you think about the answer to the last question, why does that make you feel guilty? So if you said, because I know I made people feel bad, I would ask you, why does that make you feel guilty? And you might say, because I caused it. They probably would have had an easier time in school and in life if I hadn't shown up. So what I would say next is, so you think you're so important and pivotal in their life that you are the person that really screwed them up and changed their life forever? This is a little unfair, but I'm throwing that at you. You might say, well, maybe I'm not the only person, but I know I had an impact. And for the part I played in their life, I do feel guilty. In which I'll respond, what kind of an impact? Do you think they ended up in therapy? And you might say, well, maybe some did. I was a real jerk. I know how it feels growing up with parents that treated me as less than and not worthy. And I'm going to ask you, so you feel guilty because you're empathizing with their plight, with their history with you. And you might answer, yes, and I know I was a bad person. And now I'm going to throw you a curveball, and like I said, pause anytime. I'm going to ask you the question, how did you benefit their lives? You might answer, I didn't. I was just a bully. I didn't like them. I didn't do any activities with them. I didn't help them. I was just a bully. And I know this is like pseudo-interactive, so bear with me. My response to that is, yes. And how did being a bully to them benefit them? And hopefully you think about that before you answer something like, there is no benefit, only the pain that I caused them. And I'm going to respond, in every relationship I had, I was passive-aggressive, judgmental, emotionally abusive, and probably other things I don't even realize. I was also kind and supportive. I wasn't only a bad guy. I dealt with the guilt from those relationships. And in each case, my ex-girlfriends went on to find someone not so much like me. So I don't know for a fact that all of them had successful relationships after me, but I know that they learned from the relationship that we were in. And of all the people that played the bad guy role in that capacity, at least I wasn't as bad as someone else might have been to them. Now, what does that mean? That means that people learn even from the jerks. People learn to have better lives by not associating with certain types of people or not being around certain behavior. So what I'm saying is that the way you showed up in someone else's life can be seen as their lesson. This is terrible. I know. This sounds terrible when I'm saying it. You are showing up as their lesson, and that somehow benefited them. I'm not saying this works with everything you feel guilty about, but I do want you to understand that even in some abusive situations, there is a benefit to the person in the victim role. It's terrible for them, yes, but when the abuse stops, when the trauma stops, and they have an opportunity to learn from that and move on to something better. And this I've seen happen a lot in relationships, especially. You get out of a bad relationship and you tell yourself, I will never have that type of person in my life again. That's why it's so important to know your values, know what's important to you in the area of relationships, in the area of friendships and family and social situations and in work. When you know what's important to you, you prioritize the most important things so that you don't let toxic people into your life. So yes, you showed up as that toxic person in someone else's life, and here's the finger pointing at you. You are bad. You were bad for doing that. You were bad for showing up as the bully. But do I really have to say that now? And do you really have to say that to yourself now, that you are not that person anymore? Now, I understand that you think you are in some ways. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But in the ways where you were confrontational or aggressive or asserting yourself to people that didn't want you to assert yourself, are you still that person? Because I want you to differentiate your external, aggressive, assertive nature that you were then and how everything you described to me in this message is more internal. Yes, you can be cold, but that's still internal. Just because you're being cold and distant and trying to push people away, it's like a defense mechanism in you. It's like you're putting up your walls because you don't want to have to deal with the person because you can't handle it or something. I'm just taking a guess. Or you don't want to be that old, negatively assertive, aggressive person that you were, and you want to keep them away so that you don't hurt them. Or, and this is probably the truth, you don't want to hurt yourself. If someone sees the real you, if you're vulnerable and expressive and you tell people that you're angry with them or you are hurt by what they said or whatever, you're being more genuine and authentic, you think that they might attack you. Because that's a vulnerable place, being expressive and allowing people to see that side of you. It's a vulnerable place, but it's also a place of strength. Because when you get through those moments of expressing yourself, especially with safe people, because not all people are safe, but most people, I think, are. If you have a circle of friends and family, they're probably more safe than a lot of other people are. At least the ones that you get along with the best, the ones that love you and want you to be happy, those are the ones that are typically more safe. Your parents may be not so safe. I don't know them at all except from what you described. But to find someone that's safe to express what's going on in you helps release some of the stuff that you're holding on to as well. But my point is, you're probably not the same person that you were then. So the guilt is attached to that person, not who you are today. And I want you to absorb that. The guilt is attached to that person, not who you are today. It doesn't mean that you don't try to make things better and make things right, but I want you to be able to let go of the guilt so that you can do it from a clearer place inside of you. Just because you get rid of guilt doesn't mean you still don't try to make things right. I just don't want the guilt to be that energy that you're carrying around, that feeling that causes you to be unhappy, because when you are trying to make things better and it's coming from a place of guilt, then you are only slowing yourself down, and it's a lot more difficult to come from a place of love and support and nurturing and acceptance and seeing the world through different eyes. If you're seeing the world through guilt, that can hold you back in a lot of ways, let alone make you feel like, crap. So I want you to remember that guilt is attached to that person, and that person you have improved upon, you are working on, and that old guilt can be resolved and absolved in you. Listen to my episodes on that. So, and that's the last thing I want to say about the guilt. Well, actually, that's not the last thing I want to say about the guilt part. The last thing I want to say about the guilt part is something I commented on. I have a little note here. And I want you to say this to yourself. And I'm going to read it to you, and I want you to actually say this to yourself. Maybe you can write this down and say it to yourself later, or just talk to yourself. So this is the point where you talk to the part of yourself that feels guilty. Are you ready? This is you talking to you. This isn't me talking to you. This is you talking to you. Say to yourself, what you did back then was awful. You mistreated people. You made them feel like crap. You laughed while making them cry. You put them down when they were happy. When they saw you, they cringed, knowing you were going to make fun of them. You sought the weak ones and preyed on them like an animal. You were rotten, and I am ashamed of you. Soak that in for a moment. It's hard. It's real. It's what's probably in there and needs to be expressed. And try not to resist anything else that you want to say to yourself. What I'm doing is having you access what's in there, what you feel about yourself, what you want to say to yourself for who you were back then, for your behavior back then. Don't worry, I'm going to get you out of this in a moment, but I want this stuff to come up if it's in you. And breathe. Because now I want you to forgive yourself. So say the following to yourself. All those things I said to you were true for that time in your life. If you went the rest of your life as that same person, I don't know if I could be forgiving. But there was a point that you realized that your hurtful, maybe even hateful behavior was wrong. But you came to that conclusion yourself. You finally felt what it must have been like to be those people that you put down and made feel bad. The instant you felt guilt was the impetus, the defining moment that gave you an understanding that you didn't want to be that way anymore. That guilt had a purpose. That purpose was to start your journey into being a better, kinder person, and to never put people down or make them feel bad again. You're still working on it, and you have a long way to go. But I see that you will never stop working on it. And because of that, because I believe that your heart has expanded and want to treat people kinder, I forgive you. I want you to know that I am proud of you, and I forgive you. This is self-forgiveness. This is acknowledgement of all the, quote, bad, and the recognition of the change in you. And finally, the positive reinforcement of what you will continue to do. Unless you don't plan to continue working on yourself and improving how you treat people, if that's where you are, then you may not be ready to forgive yourself. But when you are working on yourself and you do want to treat people better, then you're ready to forgive yourself. That's how it works. Don't ask me how I know. But that's how it works. And I want you to think about that. Do you promise to always try to be a better person? Do you promise you'll try to treat people kinder and more supportive and to never travel down that bully road again? All right. That's all I want to say about guilt. I want you to say that to yourself if that's what you're feeling. If the words I used don't match, then use your own words. But the whole point of this is to address what you may be holding in, what you may be feeling or not holding in, and say those words to yourself. When you did this, I was so upset at you, because what you're doing is talking to a former version of yourself, as odd as that sounds, but it's good to express this stuff to that former version, not because the former version is listening, although I think it is, but because the feelings and the words are probably in there and probably need to come out. So that's why I recommend saying these things to yourself. So you might have to rewind this and write it down, or maybe you went through a change or a shift as I said them to you. So try that out and let me know what you think about that. Now, let's address your current behavior, because what you said was, when people upset me, I become cold, distant, uncommunicative, and I try to push them away, even for the slightest thing. I've tried to stop, and it is slowly improving, but I can't help but be frustrated that I'm like this. Well, one of the things you told me is that you're 22. And if you are male, which I think you are, you really are much younger than 22, sorry to say. Because men don't really match their physical age at an emotional level. I'm not putting you down for that. I'm not trying to. But at 22, I was more like a, 16-year-old. And I didn't know that until I was 42. When I can look back and go, gee, at 22, I was doing these things, and I was mistreating these people, and I was being a jerk over here, and I was pretty much acting the same way I did when I was 16. When did I grow up? Oh, I started growing up in my 30s, pretty much. I'm not saying that all men are like this, but that is a common thing, that men have to catch up emotionally. I don't know why. I think it's just the way our brain works. But let me say this. You're also about 20 years ahead of most people that have these realizations about themselves. So you are way ahead of the curve. You are about 20 years ahead of me. I'm 15 or so, when I started realizing some of the stuff that I did in my life. So you are already on the right track. And let me also say that you are in the generation of instant gratification, where everything has to happen fast. In your email, you said, it's happening. I'm working on my stuff, but it's, taking too long. It's not happening fast enough. I just want to accelerate it. And it's taken me years. It has literally taken me years to move from one emotional revolution to the next. It just takes time to absorb the lessons and go through more challenges in life to really have them hit. Because as soon as you learn the lesson, this is my belief, as soon as you learn the lesson you need to learn in some circumstance in life, a situation comes along that challenges your learning. And an example of that is when I learned personal boundaries and how to honor myself. Suddenly my stepfather shows up out of nowhere, and I have to keep him outside of my mom's house. That was a challenge. That was so hard, and I didn't want to do it. I felt like a little boy again, and I didn't want to say that he wasn't welcome inside because I'd never challenged him like that. I'd never stood up to him like that. But I had to embrace the lessons I'd learned and really follow through, and it all worked out because I was up to the challenge. You just have to know that these challenges will come over time and help to accelerate your learning. And believe me, if you're ready to learn something and improve yourself, those challenges will come. So something else that you said was, I also have a tendency to be judgmental and cynical. And what I'm going to say about that is I do have episodes on judgment as well. Now, judgment can be both a blessing and a curse. I address the curse side of judgment in my episodes, and I share with you how to evolve from the negative judgments of others. Now, cynicism is a great quality to have as long as you keep it in check and allow yourself to release it when someone is consistent and in integrity. So if you're cynical about someone, but they keep showing up in integrity and they keep showing up and showing you who they really are, and you appreciate who they really are, your cynicism wanes. I mean, it starts to go away. So I think it's okay to be cynical. I used to say that in my intros a long time ago, like I may be a little cynical, but I grew beyond saying that because I've learned to become more not only open-minded, but understanding of the world and issues and behaviors, and just more understanding of these things have evolved me from cynical to, I don't know, where do you go from cynical? Trusting. And it's not so much trusting other people, like everyone that shows up is not going to be trustworthy. Some people are, some people aren't. But trusting myself that I'll know what to do if someone shows up in a way that does not benefit me or harms me in some way. So I think some of these qualities in you are good tools to have, but I really want you to have a choice to use those tools or not. If you're meeting a stranger off of Craigslist to buy a stereo, it's okay to be cynical. It's okay to be skeptical. It's okay to have a little wall in between you until you get to know that this person is legit. I don't know if that's a fair example. I'm not saying anything bad about Craigslist, but you meet these strangers and you have no idea what their intention is. So you want to be careful. You want to have a careful approach. But what about with people that you know well and that show up consistently over and over again? If they're not showing up consistently, if they give you reasons not to trust them, if they give you reasons that they aren't always who they say they are, then cynicism and skepticism is a healthy quality to have with those types of people. And then you have to ask yourself, who am I hanging out with? It's that Jim Rohn quote, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. I paraphrased it, but that is pretty much what I've learned, is that the more I hang out with people I don't necessarily trust, the more untrusting of the world I become. If I don't necessarily like these people I hang out with, then I look at the world as a place I don't really like. Because who am I hanging out with most? That represents the world to me. So I just want you to understand that maybe the people that you're hanging out with, if they're not the best representations of the people that you want in your life, you may want to expand your selection and get some more positive people of integrity in there, if that's what it is for you. Now, what you said about being cold and distant, uncommunicative, I want you to write down exactly why that is. Why do I become cold? Why do I become distant? Why do I not want to communicate with them? Why do I try to push them away? What do you come up with there? There's some missing information here for me, so I really can't expand upon it. All I can think of is those are coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms that pop up in you so that no one sees the real you. This is a total stab in the dark, but if I do this, if I try this on and I'm cold and distant and uncommunicative and I try to push people away, I don't want people to see the real me. I'm hiding. I want to hide from them. Why do I want to hide? Like you said, maybe it's your parents that brought you up this way and you're not sure how to respond to people. It could all be true. But let's just say that never existed. That's a silly thing to say, but I'm going to say it. Let's just say that you were born today or yesterday. You were born yesterday and then you grew up really fast. And today you are showing up in the world. And somebody says or does something that makes you cold, distant, uncommunicative, and you want to push them away. What reason would you give me then? You're going to find more to the heart reasons instead of just saying, well, my mom treated me this way. My dad treated me this way. 10 years ago, so-and-so said this. 5 years ago, so-and-so said that. Let's just say that past doesn't exist. What reason do you use today if you were born yesterday? You have no references. So you might come up with, well, I'm cold because I just don't want to deal with people. Well, why don't you want to deal with people? Well, because they want something from me that I don't want to give them. Well, what don't you want to give them? Well, if I get too close, then they might hurt me. Okay, we're getting closer. We're getting closer and trying to define why you don't do these things. And so far, you're not referencing your mom, your dad. And I'm not saying that you do this normally, that you reference your past. I'm just saying that make sure that when you are experiencing these states, that you have something solid and tangible that you can grab onto to point at so that you know what to work on. It's hard to work on, my mom did this to me. It's hard to work on, my dad did this, therefore this is the way I am. It's a lot easier to work on, I get scared when people say hello to me. This is just an example. Okay, why do you get scared? Well, I get scared because I think they're going to see the real me. Okay, who's the real you? You start asking questions and drilling in. Well, the real me is a scared little boy. Okay, what are you scared of? Well, if they see the real me, then they might hurt me. Okay, how will they hurt you? Well, if they call me a jerk, or if they figure out I'm not that smart, they might think I'm an idiot and they may not like me. Okay, so they don't like you. Why does that hurt? Well, if they don't like me, then, you keep digging, and I've done this on other shows, so I highly recommend you listen to other episodes. But the idea is to continue as if you didn't have much of a history and look at what's present in your mind today, in your world today, and find out the practical stuff that you can use. It's hard to use anything from the past. I'm not saying you shouldn't, look into your past, and there's a lot of therapeutic value there. But just for this exercise, stick with the present and as if you were born yesterday. And once you learn all these closer to the present moment, closer to the heart, things about yourself and why you behave the way you do, then you can drill into those things. Because this could come back to a lack of self-confidence. This could come back to a lack of self-worth, a lack of self-esteem. It could be in there. Yes, they have an origin. They have an origin in your past. But let's just say that I told you that I want you to be confident today. Well, I don't know where confidence is in me. I don't have confidence. And when I did, I was a bully. Okay, I would ask you, why aren't you confident? Well, I'm not confident because I don't know what that's like without being a jerk. Okay, do you know anyone that is confident that you can look at that isn't a jerk? And you might think, well, so-and-so is a real confident person, and he's not a jerk. Well, then how does he do it? And that's what I would ask. And there's so much more that we can explore here, but it involves probably more one-on-one. But the idea that you can use someone else as your role model and kind of emulate them is a great experiment, even if it doesn't feel real. Like I used to emulate the people I used to work with in the 90s because I looked up to them. I had managers that I really admired and respected, and I had one manager in particular that was not afraid to speak his mind. And I tell you what, that really helped me because I was so afraid to speak my mind. And he had no problem telling it like it was, telling it like it is. And I use that as my role model. It's because people have qualities that we appreciate. That's why it's so important to hang out with people that you want to be more like. You are the average of the people that you hang out with most. That's why it's so important to be around those people, because we want to be around people that have qualities that we admire and respect and would like more of in ourselves. So if all you have is toxic family and terrible relationships and terrible coworkers, terrible being subjective, but if that's all you have, then that's all you're learning from. And you're in a vicious cycle, a self-perpetuating cycle, because you keep exposing yourself to bad learnings. Now, let me finish with this, Cliff. You say that I consider myself a pretty quietly angry all the time kind of person. The quiet anger, I'm going to suggest that you do the following. Now, hear me out. You got to hear this whole thing. I'm going to say, tell your parents what you really think. I mean, stand in front of them and tell them everything they did that made you the way you are. Blame them for everything you think is their fault. So now I'm having you address the origin. Blame them for everything you think is their fault, even if you usually justify their behavior. Because I hear that all the time. I hear people say, well, my mom did this to me, but she had a bad childhood, she had a bad upbringing, she had an abusive husband. Don't justify that stuff when it's in you, because you can't get it out of you if you start invalidating yourself with these excuses, even though they're real. I understand people go through their thing, our parents go through their things, but we need to get it out of us first before any justifications come up. This is why I want you to stand in front of them and tell them exactly what you think. Stand in front of both of them and tell them everything they did to make you the way you are. Blame them for everything that you think is their fault. Now, I told you to hear me out, right? I need you to do this in your mind. Some people already knew I was going there, but I need you to do this as a visualization. Don't do this for real. Don't do this in front of them. I need you to do this And you might have to do it one at a time with first your dad, then your mom, or vice versa, and say all the things you need to say, and even be physically aggressive if you have to. You might have to be the bully again. You might have to experience that bully in you that maybe had confidence, that maybe had arrogance, that maybe had a big ego, and stand in front of them and say, you did this to me, and you caused this, and you this, and you that. All in your mind, all visualized, so that you can experience what it's like to express this in a safe place. Your mind is the safest place. And if you do this visualization, you'll get their responses, their reactions. You know them well enough that they will respond and react in your mind. So everything I just said, don't do it for real. Hopefully you didn't stop this recording and call them before you heard what I said. But you do it as a visualization so that you get it all out. Because there's probably some stuff in there that you've not said, that you've not expressed, that you have in you that you don't know you have in you. When hatred for my stepfather came out of me one night, I was shocked. I never knew I hated my stepfather, but it was a good thing that I started letting this stuff come out, because what else is in there, when you let it out, it can be freeing. Because a lot of our limitations come from our upbringing. A lot of our limitations come from what we believe ourselves to be through the eyes of our caretakers, through the eyes of the people who have influenced us or hurt us throughout the years. And I don't want that to be your limitation from this point on. So I need you to be expressive. And even that old bully, if that's where you feel like you need to go, to visualize your parents in front of you and tell them exactly what you need to tell them. Because you have to pull that confidence out. You have to pull it out so that you can get it out of your system. And even though it's not like real life, it can be so freeing inside of you to release some of the things that you might be holding on to. So that's where I want to take you today. There's more to discuss, but, time constraints and all that. But tell me where you get with this. Write back to me. I hope everything's well with you. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for writing this, Cliff. And I wish you the best. And thanks for listening to this episode. We'll be right back. I'll say my goodbyes and some thank yous and my final words right after this. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I want to thank Casper. Visit casper.com/brain and get $50 towards select mattresses. It was great having Asha on the show today, wasn't it? Well, it was for me. I don't know about you. Terms and conditions apply. Make sure to use the promo code BRAIN when checking out, too. casper.com/brain with the promo code BRAIN to get $50 toward those select mattresses. And I want to thank someone who left a review in Stitcher. I hardly ever see anyone leave reviews in Stitcher. Stitcher's another one of those podcast apps like iTunes. Steph says, a new way of seeing relationships. Pretty much every podcast has so much heart to it. Paul is genuine and caring, and you can really hear and feel that in his messages. She goes on to say more, but I don't want to inflate my ego at all. So I want to thank you, Steph. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for saying all that. And she says I really helped her in her current relationship and learn from my past on so many levels. Thank you, Steph. Thank you for using Stitcher. I get a lot less traffic on Stitcher than anywhere else, so it's great to see that there's some traffic going that way too. And I want to thank the patron members at patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. If you learned something in one of these episodes, the patron side is there for you to support the show. It's not necessary. I'm not telling you need to go over there and support the show, but it is a way to give back if you feel so inclined to do so. And by giving back, you also get back. I have a bunch of private episodes you've probably never heard if you're not currently a patron member. There's workbooks and worksheets that are all part of the patron membership. And it's my way of giving you more by supporting the show. So if you want to support the show, go to patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com and choose the membership level that's right for you. And thank you, existing patron members. I appreciate you so much. You are absolutely pivotal to keeping this show going, and your support means a lot to me. Thank you. And I also want to thank the people using the Amazon button at theoverwhelmedbrain.com. It is an international Amazon button, so it covers a lot of countries. So if you want to shop on Amazon, go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on the Amazon button. And every time you purchase something, it helps the show. And let me tell you about the MEAN Workbook. The MEAN Workbook is an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. You know, emotional abuse and manipulation is so tricky to spot sometimes. Have you ever tried to explain your partner's behavior to friends or family, and then they say, well, that doesn't sound so bad. In fact, it sounds like they're trying to support you, not make you feel bad. I'm being a little facetious. You just want to pull your hair out when you hear this kind of response because, you know, people don't see the compounding effect of emotional chaos that might be going on in your home day after day. This is where the MEAN Workbook comes in handy. It's a 200-point assessment that helps you pinpoint exactly what behavior is occurring so that you can finally articulate what's happening to you in a way that's more succinct and descriptive, detailing the behavior over time and not from like a snapshot of your life. You know what I mean? It's like trying to explain the anxiety that you felt standing in line for the fastest roller coaster in the world. You might have all this anxiety and you're sweating, and people might say, yeah, but you were just standing there. What was there to be anxious about just standing? And this is probably a poor example, but I'm going to use it anyway. What people might not take into consideration is that when you drove to the park, it started to make you nervous. And then you arrived and you bought your ticket, and that made you sweat and cause all kinds of fears and hesitations to come up in you. And then when you were standing in line, it made you feel sick and you wanted to run. Your entire experience was a bigger picture of events, not a single moment that appeared benign. That's what I see in emotionally abusive relationships. Bad behavior repeats and causes you more stress, more anxiety, more questioning yourself and your own decisions. A partner that is emotionally abusive often makes you think you're crazy and too sensitive when they're just trying to set you up to take the fall for their bad behavior. Don't take the fall. If you're in a relationship that seems more difficult than it should be, take a stand for yourself and for the greater good of the relationship by starting to trust yourself and remember how you felt about yourself before you get into the relationship. So if you need help understanding just what's going on in your relationship, why it's so complex, why it's so difficult, get the MEAN Workbook over at loveandabuse.com. You can download it, take it with you, and keep it on your phone and just go through it in private. Couples can work on it together if you have a partner that is willing and open to see and explore their own behavior in order to improve themselves. Or maybe it's just for you. Either way, go to loveandabuse.com and get it today. And finally, I'd like to thank Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. You know, I just talked about the MEAN Workbook, and I was thinking, what an interesting concept. If I had this when I was younger, how would I fill out that assessment about my parents? And I don't think my mom would show up too much on it, but I know my stepfather would. And what would that tell me? What kind of knowledge would that give me to understand what I need to do next? I mean, the workbook gets into that, but thinking about when you know something about a relationship that you're in, be it a friendship, a coworker, a lover, a family member, when you're in a relationship and you know something to be true, do you make the changes that you need to make if you need to make them? In other words, you know, sometimes we know that there's a toxic person in our life, yet we don't do anything about it. And, you know, I've heard from people say, I'm just worried. I don't have the finances. I don't have a place to stay. I don't have resources. I have kids. And there's a lot of real obstacles that can prevent us from getting into a better situation. And every obstacle can be overcome. And it's important to realize that it sometimes needs to be overcome because the person that stays in the relationship has a filter of how the world is. And if you're with someone, you know, I'll go back to that quote, you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with most. If you're with someone that you don't admire their qualities, you don't respect anything about them or very little about them, or their strengths aren't the strengths that you need, they're the strengths that, I don't know, cause them to have power over you or control over you. If you are with someone that you don't want to be more like, guess what happens to you? I don't mean to make you feel bad if you're in this situation, but I need you to realize that sometimes we judge ourselves and we keep ourselves in these relationships that keep us who we believe ourselves to be. So if you're with someone who looks down at you, puts you down, thinks you're a bad person, that's what happens to us. We believe it. We are in it. We don't aspire to be anything more. I'm overgeneralizing, but this can happen. We don't aspire to be something more because the person that we've learned to trust is now telling us things that at first we didn't want to believe, but we slowly start to believe it. And even if we don't believe it, let's just say that you absolutely don't believe any of the things that someone says to you that's, hurtful or demeaning in any way. Even if you don't believe that stuff, your continuous exposure to their toxic words or behavior is sort of like propaganda. I mean, it's them continuing to influence you until you get to the point where you either believe it and just submit to what they think about you and their control, or you don't believe it and you don't leave because you don't believe that you could ever get into a better situation, or you don't believe that you have the confidence or the ability or, the stamina, the resources to get into a better situation, because it's all part of that plan of influencing you to not believe that you can. So if you're in any type of relationship, I mean any relationship, again, coworker, friend, lover, where someone makes you feel bad, where someone puts you down, where you just know the relationship doesn't feel right, where it feels toxic, where it feels de-energizing. When you're in that space, know that the amount of time and energy that you spend with these people is either a positive or negative investment into yourself. So if you're with someone that is more harmful than good, you negatively invest in yourself. If you're with someone who's more supportive and nurturing and helpful and wants you to be happy, that's a positive investment in yourself. So you have to look at all your relationships as what you're investing into yourself. Because I've talked to a lot of people that are in very toxic relationships that are not in the space to leave. They're not emotionally prepared to leave. The problem is they're in the relationship and they continue to be in the relationship, causing them to continue negatively investing in themselves, which means it will never end. I don't mean to put that as a downer out there, but if you're aware of this, of what you're investing into yourself because of the person that you're hanging out with or the people that you're hanging out with, that if you see those as investments into yourself, that maybe you'll get to the point where you have more inside you. If it's all negative investments into yourself, you're going to believe that you can't do it. If it's all positive investments in yourself, you're going to believe that you can, and you'll find a way. And even in the worst case scenario, you're going to get through it. So find people, find teachers, find resources that will be a positive investment into you, so that the majority of your time is investing positively into you and not negatively. And no matter what, always keep your mind open so that you can step into your power. This will help you be firm in your decisions and actions so that you can create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure. And above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing. talk to you about our mattress.
It's not weird.
It's not weird at all.
Okay. If you say so. I think this is too high. It's by my nose.
I can hear your nose.
Guess it doesn't matter where you put it. You can hear my nose. It's
Put it
fine.
closer to your mouth, see if it changes.
What do you mean, like this?
Try
Oh,
that.
hello. No, I just can't breathe.
What about me?
I'm a loud breather.
How come it's not for me? Your nostrils
Because you
are
have a
pointed.
bigger face.
Your nostrils are pointed differently. Jeez. Come on.
I don't know. It just is what it is. It's because I'm doing it hard. I'm breathing
Right,
hard. I'm not
right.
breathing normal. I'm not breathing
You
normal.
just shifted it.
Yeah, well, that's not good. I just
Work
won't
it.
breathe.
Work
Just
it.
leave it alone. It'll be fine.